102.5 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. Yet another disgustingly hot day outside. I will continue to slander summer at every opportunity. Disgusting outside. Absolutely disgusting. I walked outside my house. It was like I walked into somebody's mouth. Nobody likes this. Nobody wants that.
Exactly, man. Nobody wants to hear that.
Fantastic
and it's
imagery.
not Summer's fault. Summer didn't say you had to walk outside.
Yeah.
You can say
How else would I have gotten here?
I don't know. That's a you problem.
By the way,
Summer's gonna be summer.
the contiguous, where's my
I
bell?
like it.
The contiguous United States sizzled to its hottest month ever in July. The lower 48 averaged 76.89 degrees Fahrenheit, eclipsing the Dust Bowl's July 1936 by an eighth of a degree. It's not good when you're breaking records from the Dust Bowl. Just going to throw it out there.
It's not good.
It's not.
But
It's bad.
That doesn't mean that's a separate discussion.
Yes.
Then your attitude.
Exactly.
Okay, Adam.
Who is with me? Join my crusade, my
No.
anti-summer crusade.
Nobody should be with
737
No,
1025.
don't join Adam's
you.
negative crusade.
Exactly.
Here's
This negativity on summer is outlandish.
it is. It's preposterous.
Gosh.
It's better to be
Man.
CVD if you don't quit slandering summer.
Exactly.
Also, congratulations to all of the parents out there, because today is the first day of school.
Yes.
Metro Nashville Public Schools, I believe, went back today.
Yes,
Some
they
of
did.
y'all's kids may have gone back yesterday. Congratulations to all the parents out there. Your smelly wiener kids are back in school. Congratulations.
Now you're talking about people. Willie, what is wrong with him today?
How many body parts?
He's
can you
talking
cover
about
today?
people, kids now.
Now, this is all I'll say, okay? I will be there with y'all soon enough. My son just started his final year of preschool. And I think, kids in elementary school, middle school, high school get 10 weeks off? My son recently had 10 days off. And by day 10, I'm like, son, I love you. Get the hell out of here, man. Go back to school. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like once he has the entire summer off. But how did you guys feel?
I get that.
How did you guys feel when your kids went back to
It's
school?
a little bit of a relief. It is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I was during this time of years, I was in camp. So whether they were at school or at home, it wasn't at that, for those 8 hours or 9 to 10 hours, how many hours it was I was there. It wasn't my responsibility, or because to me, it didn't matter if they were in school or out of school. I was gone, during practice. So it was more so on Marcy. And I'm pretty sure she was like, yeah, I'm glad they're back in school. Yeah. Get a little relief.
Yeah.
A few hours.
Get a little downtime.
Exactly. Maybe
Yeah.
just a little. But then, as a mom or whoever's deciding to be at home at that time, you got to get dinner ready. You got to, make sure everything is taken care of. You got to go pick them up. So it's still a lot you got to do.
One texter says, as someone in a car with no AC right now, I agree with Adam and encourage him speaking truth to power.
No, he's being biased right now.
Damn right.
He's being biased because he doesn't have an air conditioner in his car.
Whose
So
fault
that
is that?
person.
One texter says, us FedEx drivers are dying out there. I mean, I'm telling you, those of you who have to
It's
work in the
It's
seat.
tough. I get it.
Whose fault is that, though?
I'm gonna
Not ours.
channel
Yeah.
the cab driver I had in Edmonton on the other
Okay.
end of the extreme. Adam, you might have been on this road trip, but it hit minus 38, which
Woo, woo.
that is the coldest I've ever experienced. And I didn't experience very long because it was like get out of the hotel, go right into the car, right into the bus. Like you could only stand it, but you had to stand out there for a
Yeah.
second just to say, this is minus 38. I'm standing in that. But our cab driver, he had a heavy accent, but he had a great enthusiasm. We were like, hey, how about this weather? He's driving us to a dinner. He goes, you must embrace it.
So Adam,
That's
you
the key
must
word of the day.
embrace it.
You must embrace it.
Embrace it, Adam. Embrace it.
Sound like Rocky.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Mitch in Bellevue says, Adam sure is on one today. I mean, it's only 3:05.
Right.
We'll
right.
see.
Exactly,
Lean
yes.
into it.
We'll
lean
see.
lean into the heat.
We'll see how it is by 6 o'clock.
Embrace it.
Josh says, even Will Levis and Nicholas Petit Frere don't suck as bad as Summer. Y'all asked Adam what's wrong with him. It's Summer.
Wow, this slander on Summer has to stop.
Mike in Gallatin says, if you love 110 plus degrees, feels like temperatures, return to the sun where you belong. I'm done with Summer.
Wow.
One texter says, boo on summertime. It is easier to stay warm than it is to get cool. I hate to sweat.
Okay, I don't want to hear nobody complaining when we get another ice storm.
Join
I don't
my
hear no
crusade.
complaining
See, I'll take
whatsoever.
this over the ice.
We're allowed to
Exactly.
complain.
Join my
Absolutely.
crusade. Derek Mason will be quick, however, to point out I am one of those sickos
Yes.
who likes that 6-week stretch late in the year where it gets dark at 4:30.
Yes, you do.
You know, I'm a weird fellow, but you know what? I hate the summer. One texter says I hate the heat, but cannot say I hate the summer. Sorry, Adam, cannot side with you this time. That's okay. We are allowed to disagree on the program. The Tennessee Titans have wrapped up practice out in Santa Clara, California. Nick Suss of the Tennessean is out there. He is expected to join us at 5 to break down what he saw at practice today. I did see that the Tennessee Titans warmed up on the field closest to the substation. As far as I know, Cam Ward has not been genetically mutated in any form or fashion. No serious injuries for the Tennessee Titans in practice today, but it sounds like it was basically the Royal Rumble. Multiple fights in the opening minutes of practice. 2 Titans players, Dan Moore Jr. and Austin Deculus, tossed from practice for throwing punches. And look, I've read through all of the tweets from all of our friends out there, Teron Davenport and Nick Suss, and even our friend Paul Kaharski, who said in typical Kaharski fashion, quote, I was with offense, which found nothing explosive, got pushed around too often, and sacked too much. Word of mouth on defense was bad. Titans definitely lost the day. Just a day, but it did nothing to help any hype. What hype, first of all? But we'll get an actual report from Nick Suss of the Tennessean, who witnessed the practice with his own eyes later in the program. But every now and then, look, the Titans have been down bad for several years. And every now and then I'm like, you know what, Titans fans, it could be worse. You could be the fill in the blank. So Tennessee Titans fans, it could be worse. You could be the Minnesota Vikings. Did you see the news out of Minnesota today? Kyler Murray will be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, unsurprisingly. But where does that leave J.J. McCarthy? So I guess it could be worse, Titans fans. You could have drafted J.J. McCarthy, and he can't get on the field. So just keep that in mind as you're worrying about the state of the Tennessee Titans.
I think that pick, I think, was surprising to a lot of people for Minnesota.
Well, at the time.
Yeah,
it
because
was.
it was almost like someone manufactured all of the hype for J.J. McCarthy going into the draft. I know he was a national championship winning quarterback. I get all that. But if you actually watch the guy play, is he a good player? Yes, but he wasn't that good to be drafted that high. And I think that, O'Connell in a game, that's when sort of this arrogance gets in the way. When you think, I can do it all, no matter what. Look at what I've done for Darnold. Look at what I've done for this guy. So I can take a guy. I'll be fine. And not paying attention to those signs that show you, man, he's going to be a big project. This guy, at least don't draft him this high. Maybe draft him in the second round. And they chose not to. So I'm not surprised that he's in a position that he's in. Because one, I thought he was drafted too high. I watched the kid play the whole season. And then two, when you draft a guy that high, you're not going to let him develop. You're not. So it's almost would have been better for him at least, if he got drafted later on.
To be fair, he's 23 years old, so he is younger than most of the quarterbacks in the 2026 draft class. And he did lose an entire rookie season after injuring his knee. By the way, this will be the 4th different starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings in 4 years, from Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy to Kyler Murray. But Willy Donick, I have a trivia question for you. Who said this? Quote, I believe organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations.
I remember using that quote.
Who said it?
I can't remember.
That was
we
J.J. McCarthy's own coach, Kevin O'Connell. I believe organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations.
Well,
that quote has been thrown back in his face today.
Another thing I will say in McCarthy's defense, and that's an interesting point, that he's still relatively young, especially the way quarterbacks in particular tend to stay, make the money, and come into the draft later. McCarthy was more the exception, the Ty Simpson exception, right? Rather than the Bo Nix model that a lot of times is a good way to come into the league more ready to play. And of course, he had the ACL too. But he lost the job, McCarthy, to Kyler Murray, who is not Brandon Allen, right? He's a legit starter in the league. He's underwhelmed based on where he was drafted, which is, again, the tag when you're the first overall pick. And Kyler Murray is one of the more unique stories. When he's great, but he's just very up and down, and he's never won a whole lot. So I wouldn't panic, but at the same time, it just shows you how hard it is to draft. Like you guys sent, maybe it was Connor, in light of this news, somebody just listed all of the, a big long list of first round picks that are not starting right now for their teams. They're all at varying degrees of places on their career. And so McCarthy's challenged now. He's not going to just jump right in there and be an everyday starter. He's going to take a rocky ride. Let's see where he is in another year or two. He's still young.
And that's why, it's important for the Titans with Cam Ward, because if you draft a guy that high, if he's showing development, but not quite as fast as you think or the fans may think, you can't just all of a sudden just pivot. You drafted him first overall. Why? To be your franchise quarterback. And majority of the quarterbacks, it takes some years for them to get immersed, and especially when you've changed coordinators on the quarterback several times. And I'm not saying that McCarthy will not end up being a good quarterback, but when you're drafted that high and you need some serious time to develop, we've already seen that the NFL is not going to allow that to happen. So it was almost best for him had he gotten drafted later on and they just sort of, okay, we're playing when he's ready. Instead of saying, oh my goodness, we drafted this high. He needs to be ready. And I don't want that to sort of be the thing with Cam. Yes, Cam needs to continue to show that he's the guy. But if his development, slows up or gets stagnant a little bit, during the season, because it's going to be a long season, that's not a cause for you to sort of throw out the baby with the bathwater. The guy is developing.
This is another thing for the Vikings specifically. I don't know what they're paying Murray compared to what they would have paid Darnold to stay, but that was the other decision they made. They thought that McCarthy, despite the knee injury, despite being very young, could jump right in to the point where they passed on Darnold, who had a really good year. For
Minnesota will pay. This is from when Murray signed with the Vikings. Minnesota will pay $1.3 million of Murray's $36.8 million salary. The Arizona Cardinals will pay the remainder as part of their decision to release.
So that's part of it. They've chosen to go. Yeah. This is in hindsight, right? But I wonder if they had kept Darnold, knowing that McCarthy was on a first-round pick rookie contract, still relatively inexpensive, but still you'd be paying two guys. I see why they did it, but they had to go and have a pivot and go in another direction.
One texter says, I'm a Michigan fan, watched every game. I have to agree with DMase here. Harbaugh talked him up a lot before the draft.
And then listen, it's not the young man's fault. And Jim was doing what he thought he needed to do, because he didn't do it just for the kid. He did it for the university too, because that looks well on recruiting when you have a top 15 quarterback drafted, and he was. And unfortunately, it's been not a good thing. It's been more of a hindrance to him thus far, because he gets injured, he's not playing as well, and he still needs time to develop. But as we know, in this league, it's like look at what they're doing with Richardson. He's about getting ready to be out of Indy. And he was a top 5 pick, the 4th overall. So they just don't have the patience. But if you're going to draft a guy in that situation, you got to let him develop. That's why you got to let Cam Ward develop and let him show. It's more than just a 1 or 2 year thing. This is him growing over the number of years he's going to be here.
One other note from Titans practice in California, Robert Saleh told reporters that everybody's going to play in the preseason game Thursday. So Cam Ward and the starters will play in the preseason game on Thursday. Not exactly sure how much they're going to play, but Cam Ward and the starters on both offense and defense, of course, will play in the preseason opener on Thursday in California. You guys,
Jim Wyatt says the
Mhm.
plan is for starters to play more than a series.
okay, quote unquote,
More than a series.
more
is it
than a
2 series?
series.
3?
Well, I guess maybe it
4?
depends on
How?
if the first series is 3 and out, is the first series a 10-play scoring drive? That
Yeah,
that probably
if
will
you
affect
score
it,
on the
right?
first drive and it goes 7, 8, 9 plays, then you want to get your guys out. It's like,
Right.
okay, we did what we came to do. Let's get them out of here.
No love for my Boston there.
I love that song. It's a
More
great
than
song.
a series.
I think that was the original name of the song,
Yes,
and then they changed it to More Than a Feeling.
fortunately. Also, by the way, multiple people
Mhm.
joining my crusade
Oh,
on the
my
text line.
goodness.
Kristen says, I'm on Team Adam. The summer, not for me. Give me the snow. I'm happy. Craig
Oh.
says, Adam, something we finally agree on. I'll take 15 degrees over this 100-degree weather any day.
I wonder if those people
Our plants?
know if they grew up in the north, okay, or the northeast.
You know
Or
what, Derek?
the-
You know better than anybody.
Northwest.
It's cold in the D.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
cold in
They
the
even
day.
made a song about it.
I know. That's what I'm referencing.
It's
My
so
wife
cold
My
in the
wife
deep.
also from the Detroit area.
Absolutely.
I know it's so cold in the D, but since I was waiting for that. One texter says, and this is good for our conversation
Okay.
in the 4:00 hour. One texter says, "Summer sucks like Coach DeBoer. Fall/cooler temps is like Coach Saban." Now we'll get to Nick Saban
Mhm.
and the SEC because Willie needs to do some whining
Oh, my
about the
goodness.
SEC
Oh my goodness.
during the 4:00 hour.
Listen,
We'll allow him to do
I'm
that.
not saying
It's
that
not.
the
It's not
other.
going to be a whine. It's going to be stating of the fact.
This is a whine. Call it what it is, Willie. I am not saying, nor do I believe Willie is saying that we hate the other
You don't
seasons.
hate winter.
I don't hate
You
winter.
just prefer summer
I
to winter.
dislike winter. It's not a hate thing. I just dislike it. Spring, fall, okay. I like those a little bit better. But summer, I definitely like. We've been in love since I was a wee little kid.
One texter says, yeah, no more Boston. I guess he didn't like my singing. Justin in Greenbrier says, my primary ask for Cam Ward is that he doesn't have a sophomore slump. I want gradual progression. I would take an enormous leap, but gradual progression is better than a regression. And we will discuss more of Cam Ward, of course. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we've talked a lot about Carnell Tate and how fantastic he has looked throughout Titans training camp. But there is a trap that we sometimes fall into regarding training camp. And Derek Mason is wondering about something that he's not going to accuse this particular position group of being terrible, but we got to talk about it. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on all of that plus summer, which stinks. 615-737-1025. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on Indianapolis at First Horizon Park. First pitch is at 6:35. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina.
are going to be the best tandem in the league this year. What do you make of those thoughts, and what is it going to take for you guys to be able to do that?
This is gonna take hard work every day. That's our mindset. That's our goal. To come out here and get better 1% each and every day. Be hard on each other, and just continue to keep that goal in mind.
Yeah, just following off that, like, how do you guys think you guys complement each other's games in terms of, again, living up to what Alante tweeted?
Alante real physical. His press game every day I learn from him, and meetings from out here on the field. So I pick his brain. He pick my brain. You know, I like to play off, be technical. You know certain concepts and stuff like that. So he picked my brain, I pick his, and we go off of that.
That was Cordell Flott earlier in training camp talking about himself and Alante Taylor in the secondary. Alante Taylor, by the way, in case you missed it, right before training camp started, tweeted 1-8 and 2-4, meaning himself and Flott. Best CB duo in 2026. I'll be back at the end of the season, and we can all discuss how we made it happen. By the way, Willy Donick in charge of music today. We'll have to guess the theme.
Yep, you have
as
to guess
always.
the theme.
Okay.
Should we know it just by that song, or it's going to take another
It's
song?
going to take a couple songs,
Okay.
I think, for you to pick up on the theme.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I think I may have picked up on a little bit of it, but I
Okay.
can't say anything.
All right. We'll keep
It's
tabs.
not rocket science. It's very gettable.
We'll keep tabs on that. But one thing we often fall victim to, for lack of a better phrase, during training camp is we look at one position group that's doing incredibly well. And sometimes we perhaps neglect the opposite position group stinking out loud. So, for example, how many times as a Titans fan have you read or heard, man, the defensive line looks awesome. It's going to be one of the best units in the NFL. Then you come to find out it's because the offensive line stinks real bad.
Mhm.
So we're watching Carnell Tate make all of these great plays. And again, none of us, obviously, were out in California, so we don't have any visual confirmation of how Carnell Tate did today. Nick Suss of the Tennessean is out there. He'll join us at 5 to break down the Titans joint practice with the 49ers. But amid all of these fantastic plays you've seen all over social media that Carnell Tate has made, part of me wondered, are the cornerbacks going to be a problem? And the Tennessee Titans, Derek Mason, spent a lot of money shoring up the cornerback position this offseason. Alante Taylor, by average per year in terms of his salary, average per year, 11th in the NFL at the cornerback position, according to Spot Track. Cordell Flott, 23rd in average salary per year at the cornerback position. And yet, neither of them made a list of the top 32 cornerbacks on Pro Football Focus. And I know Pro Football Focus isn't the end-all be-all, but I did think that was interesting. So, Derek Mason, you seem to have perhaps some concerns about the cornerbacks, specifically Taylor and Flott.
Yeah, because I don't want, it's almost like I don't want no stone to be unturned, because this team is in a position, this team is at a space where you can't allow something to sort of go unaddressed. So when I see, which is great, I see the wide receivers and it seems like they're developing at a pace that Dabo loves, and it's showing on the field from what we're seeing. It's not perfect, but you see, and there's this anticipation to see what Ellick or DK or Carnell Tate is going to do. And then Wandell in this offense with Cam Ward. We all want to see that. So we're looking at the wide receivers and we're praising them because we haven't had a group that we believe has been this good from top to bottom. Now, season come, maybe a different story, but I doubt it. But that's why we are excited about this core, because from top to bottom, they seem like a really good group of receivers we hadn't had in a while. So then that got me thinking about the defensive backs. And I'm like, well, I've seen this picture before where, one side seems so dominant and we're praising that one side. And then when we get in the game, it's like, oh, snaps. That other side was really bad. He had nothing. I mean, they're good over there, but the way that they look, we thought this was going to be like, a little bit shy of the 85 Bears or the 2000 Titans or Ravens. That's how we were looking at that defense, so to speak, that they were going to be a solid, good defense. Well, come to find out, our offensive line was horrendous. It wasn't good at all. And I'm not saying that, Taylor and Flott, those guys are not good players. What I'm saying is this, is that I don't want anything to be missed. I want this to be a give and take with the wide receivers and the DBs. That's what I want it to be. That shows me that, okay, there's some pushing and there's some pulling here. It's back and forth. They're making each other better. But if one side is dominating and the other side isn't doing anything, it's who am I making better? So I just don't want there to be an oversight with the corners, Flott and Taylor, more specifically, because these are two guys. One, they're playing $60 million. The other, they're paying $45 million. Two guys that they brought in as a revamped corner position. Two guys that they brought in that they want and need them to be the one and the two. One guy just played more so in the slot. Now you're asking him to play outside. You've seen Taylor play in New Orleans
as a Saints fan,
and what you express. Tell the listeners what was your assessment of Taylor.
Well, what I appreciate about Alontae Taylor is he can play inside and outside. He basically did what the Saints needed. Like, hey, we need someone inside. Taylor will play inside. Oh, we need you to go back outside. Taylor will go back outside. I believe here the intention is for him to play outside.
Yes.
He is an all or nothing corner. He's going to make a fantastic play or he's going to get burned. Like, there's very little in between with Alontae Taylor. He's that type of corner. And I know, Willie, that corners, historically, it's a volatile position. But I will say this. I was surprised by how much the Tennessee Titans paid Alontae Taylor to come here. I think he's a fine corner, but I would just advise some of you who have not watched Alontae Taylor on a regular basis, he's going to make some what the hell is he doing type of plays out there. And it's all or nothing. That's the way I would describe Alontae Taylor.
I go back to the big picture. It sounds like if you took the names off and you were describing this situation last year, I think you would be talking about Dan Moore, where, and I would also use the context of, we were laughing about all of these ex-Titans offensive linemen who were thrown onto the scrap heap. Get out of here. You're no good. Get out of here. We don't, you don't belong in the league. And yet they're still in the league. All of them. They find jobs. The Titans were desperate to overhaul their entire secondary, or at least when it came to corners, right? They still have, Winston, the guy they drafted. That's a guy to watch. I'm really curious about him. We know at this point Amani Hooker's situation. At least he's a guy that's drafted, developed. You know him. He's your guy. But the corners, they were basically going out there saying, we're desperate. We got to go pay. They had to overpay to get guys. And when you do that, you get flawed players. So I'm not expecting too much unless the defensive line can dominate. That is really the thing. And the system that you're playing, if it's a good fit for those guys, that's the hope, that you have a good defense. But just because you pay a certain amount of dollars in free agency, that's usually because you're desperate. And the Titans were desperate.
Yeah, and it reminded me when you talked about Taylor and how, your assessment of him was, it reminded me of Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters, throughout his, and listen, he was a good player, but with him, it was feast or famine. It was, I'm going to jump it and make the play, or he's going to catch it. That's how his whole career was. Now, he had some fantastic moments, like you said, Taylor did. He had some fantastic moments, and it allowed him to stay in the league for a long time, either with Kansas City or the Baltimore Ravens. But he also had those plays where you just scratched your head like, what in the hell is he doing? Like, What is he doing out there? And I think toward at least toward Marcus Peters' career, toward the latter part, he had more of those than not. So I look at him as I looked at Diggs. Diggs was another guy that was almost like feast or famine. Why do you think he had so many interceptions that one year? Then come back and he wasn't as good. Now I know he had the knee injury too, but he couldn't do the things that he was accustomed to doing. He had to now play it honest. And I'm hoping that, because they mentioned too, hey, listen, we got the defensive line, and he's right. They got some studs up front, but you can't make that all the end all be all a part of your game. What if they don't get to him on that particular play or series? What are you going to do then? So I just don't want that to be seen as, oh, we're all right because we gave one this, 60 and the other 45, so we're good. No, not necessarily, but I am glad the wide receivers are developing and doing what they're doing. But I'm just hoping that the development is coming from, because of the defensive backs are playing them, they're so good, or they're good, that they're forcing them to develop and mature a lot quicker.
Are we just, I think reasonably, expectations would be, for me, that this group is better than last year. If they're just better than last year,
The bar is on the floor.
Yes,
Right.
it's on the floor.
I think
but-
that one.
Because you had injuries and everything
everybody's
else.
bar should be on the floor. This is a team that's been horrible.
At
And
least
you
it's
don't-
not Jalen Armour Davis out
year
there
in and year
at
out.
quarterback.
Nobody goes and buys a championship team in NFL free agency, right? I think at one time,
The Patriots
or
came
another-
close.
but they had the quarterback.
Yes.
They were further along. They had more answers. And who did it for them? It was the homegrown young guys that really were the basis. And they did do a nice job of finding guys who fit. But I don't think they won because of Harold Landry last year. He was a complimentary piece on a good team. And that's what I think the Titans are hoping for. But you can't just sit there and go, they spent all this money. If you're still falling for that, if I hear that this year, if they're struggling, somebody, well, they paid all this money in free agency, they're not getting. That's not how you build a championship team. That is a way to patch a bad situation. You have to draft. It takes time. And so I'm much more concerned about the young players. And I'm hoping in the meantime that Taylor and Flott are an upgrade and can stay on the field. Let's be honest, right? They've had some guys in recent years that they've purchased in free agency that haven't been able to stay on the field.
But if you allow, when you bring in a Flott and a Taylor, veteran guys, or with it Franklin Myers, you bring in guys like that, you expect them to play at a certain level so that your younger players can develop. Why do you think,
right?
Alec and DK, Alec and DK
Support
was
them.
not supposed to play as much as they did,
Right.
but because of the situation, they had to, and they took their lumps and they took them, to the chin. It made him a better player this year. At least Alec, we know, because he's showing it, and I'm sure it has DK. But if I'm going to get a Flott and I'm going to get a Taylor, if I'm paying them $60 million, not per year, but if I'm paying them anywhere near what I would pay a top corner, I'm asking them to be my 1 and a 2. Yeah, you better show up, because we had too many guys that come in here and for whatever reason, injury or whatever, they hadn't shown up. And that's why this team is in a position, along with, as we always talk about, drafting and developing. But if you're not drafting and developing, you at least better hit on your free agents, and the team just hasn't, at least not within the last couple of years.
Alontae Taylor, to be fair,
Yes,
had what I would call a nice season last year in New Orleans, but relative to how much he seemed to struggle the previous couple of years, you have to take that into consideration. So like a nice season from Taylor, we're still kind of like a season. He gave up 6 touchdowns in coverage as the nearest defender, according to the NFL last season.
Okay.
So he did get burned.
You're the right guy to ask this then, because you watch more Saints than any of us do here. Why did the Saints not bring him back? The Saints aren't very good. They need good players. Why did they not?
I don't know if I have enough time to teach a PhD course on the Saints salary cap situation.
From a basic perspective, they have been in perpetual salary cap jail since the Drew Brees ending, right? That has been their hocus pocus. And for those that don't believe the salary cap is, quote, real, it is catching up to them, right? So that's part of the answer.
I would say so. Yes.
Their credit card bill is bloated.
As
they're
I
still trying to
said,
dig out from.
Alontae Taylor is the 11th highest paid corner per year in the NFL. As you said, Willie, in free agency, across all sports, you are going to overpay. The Titans needed professional corners because the Titans did not have professional corners for most of last season.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue the last couple of seasons, especially with L'Jarius Sneed doing L'Jarius Sneed things. So I can understand why the Titans went out and got Taylor. But
And Flott for
and
that,
Flott,
right?
Let's not forget about Flott. But Derek brought it up, and I thought it was interesting because we have been praising Carnell Tate to the heavens throughout training camp. And part of me wonders, not to take anything away from what Carnell Tate has done, but I'm just like, should we be concerned about the state of the corners?
And I'm not saying that, Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott are not going to come in here and be good players. That's not what I'm saying. I hope they are. And I trust, Borgine, but what I'm also saying is this: we've praised the wide receivers in the development, which is great. But are we sort of missing, what could be a potential problem? Because we've seen it before where one side dominates and we don't play assist to the other side. Then you get in the game and it's like, man, it really wasn't them. It was these guys. No wonder they look so good. And I don't want that to be. I'm hoping it's not. I don't expect it to be, but I don't want to be one of those people we get in the seasons like, man, we should have talked like we saw. No, I just want to, just like the JC thing, the pack. Let's just put that in the back pocket. I ain't worried about it yet. Just put it in our back pocket. And if it continues to happen, then that's something we need to talk about. And it's the same with the cornerbacks.
The other thing quickly too about the Saints, in recent history at least, they haven't prioritized that position. They let CJ Gardner-Johnson go. They let Marshawn Lattimore go. So it's sort of in the Saints' MO. They're not willing to pay huge sums of money for corners. 615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on Alontae Taylor, Cordell Flott, and the cornerback position for the Tennessee Titans. 615-737-1025. Plus, an interesting comment on Cam Ward from a member of the San Francisco 49ers. We'll discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Keep up with training camp with 102.5 The Game for the latest updates, player interviews, and more. As we get you prepped for the upcoming season, coverage of training camp is presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. All right. What was the first song, Willie, that you played today? This is Blur, song number 2. But what was the first song in the rotation? I don't
Phil
recall.
Collins.
Okay.
This is football songs?
Nope.
Because you played the ooh, and we used to play it all the time. So I was
Hmm.
thinking like, ooh. I need to hear that first one over again because I thought I heard some words in there.
No
that-
do-overs.
Dang it.
No do-overs. All right.
When did that become a rule?
Now.
When I just instituted it. Also,
Well,
very
yeah, well.
strategic by Willy Donick, not telling you the name of that song, just telling you the artist.
Oh, wow. Wow, Willie.
It's playing the long game. I admire
Play
it.
the long game. Trying
Songs with numbers in the title?
Nope.
Oh. All right. We'll get it. We'll get it. On our cornerback conversation, Matt from Camden says, I understand the concern. But what if Carnell Tate is just that dude? What if he is just better than everyone else? And that's possible. We're not trying to take anything away from Carnell Tate.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it could be both, right? He
Yeah.
could be really good, and the Titans don't have great corners. Or hopefully the old iron sharpens iron, right? This is we talk about this every training camp. Nobody's going to know. Nobody will know. You have to hope that, and this is the key word. In August, everybody has hope. Everybody is hoping that Flott and Taylor are the right fits for the solid defense, and Salah's going to get that the defensive line going. They're going to finally have a pass rush, which they haven't had in 5 years. It's all hope, and a lot has to line up for it to go right. And that is how it should be when you have back-to-back 3-win years, and the year before that, you only won 6. So they've been bad for a while. It's hard to turn it around in one offseason.
Also, to note, think of some of the top wide receivers the Tennessee Titans are going to face this season. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in Cincinnati, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in Dallas, Garrett Wilson with the Jets, so on and so forth. The Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. The Titans are going to face some tough wide receiver combinations this season. So Flott and Taylor are going to have a lot on their plates.
Yeah, they are. And listen, I do hope it's what the texter said, that Tate's just that good in the defense. The corners are good too, but he's just that dude. I hope it is that way. But it's okay to ask the questions, because I don't think this team, it's not that I'm accusing, Flott or Taylor that they will not be or they will not live up to their contracts. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is this is a team that's been bad for some years, a good while. And the development hasn't been there. And the players that they brought in just hadn't worked out. So it's okay to ask the question, even while still believing that Carnell Tate is the guy, or Ellick is getting better, or, Wandale was the perfect guy to put in a slot, and DK is getting better, and Oliver and Calvin's going to be there. It's okay to still say that, but also question, like, okay, hold on. Because I've seen this picture before. It's okay to question whether are they that good, or are this unit, or is this unit not as good as we thought they were going to be when they signed them?
So, of course, the Tennessee Titans have wrapped up practice in Santa Clara, California with the 49ers, just one joint practice before their preseason game on Thursday. And I saw an interesting quote from Fred Warner, of all people. I guess he and Cam Ward were verbally jousting today during practice. And Fred Warner said, quote, he's one of the few quarterbacks to do that, I guess, going back and forth with Warner. It's yet to be determined, Warner says, whether that's a positive or negative. I assume meaning the trash talk for Cam Ward. He's got to let his play do the talking too. But I thought that was an interesting quote that I saw on social media.
Well, I mean, Fred Taylor. I mean, not Fred Taylor.
Fred
Fred
Warner.
Warner. Excuse me. He knows he's out there, I guess, for starters, because Cam is going back and forth with them. So that tells me there was this back and forth with the offense and the defense, one getting the other, and vice versa. But I mean, listen, if that's a part of his personality, we saw that the prime example is Baker Mayfield. You know, people wanted Baker Mayfield to calm it down some, but that's him. You saw it in Oklahoma. That's what won him the Heisman Trophy. That's what allowed him to be the first overall pick and his talent. But that came with his talent, because as much as he talked, he went out there and backed it up. So you can. Tom Brady was the same way. Tom Brady talked trash all the time, but he backed it up. And that's what you hope Cam will do. And he has been doing it. You know, he didn't do it in the first half of the season, but I thought second half, and we've talked about this, he got better. And you're seeing some more of that development in practice. So if that's him, let him talk his talk, man. Let him do it. That's who he is as a player. You just hope now that he backs it up.
Some athletes thrive on the trash talk, right? I am not saying that Cam Ward is going to be the NFL's version of Michael Jordan or anything like that, but some athletes, it gets them going, as you know, Derek Mason.
Hey, it got the pilot lit, man. When you start, I didn't always talk. I didn't start it, but when you started it, I was gonna finish it. And that's one thing. Quickly, that's one thing that my brothers, and I learned this from my brothers, in several different areas of my life. But when you start it, it's like, a game or a fight is like, if you come at me, I'm not going to stop until I feel like I got the upper hand on you. I'm not going to stop. So if we got to fight all day, I am going to fight you all day, period. And that's how it should be on a football field.
What kind of trash talk did Willy do on the basketball court and baseball field?
I did some. I can't
imagine this
I
at
could get
all.
pulled into it. Oh, I had a switch for sure.
You have to, man. If you have
and I don't know that I did better. I could get pulled into it. I think I was better if I stayed above it, but there were times where I could get pulled into it. I don't think I started it, but like you said, if somebody challenges you, it's hard. You have to live up. You have to stand up to the challenge, whether that's to talk back or just play that well.
The one time I did start it, it didn't end well for me in Cincinnati. I started it before the game even started, during the week, and it didn't work out well for me. And that was the first time I had ever did that. So it didn't work out well for me. But if you start it.
Baseball is not as much of a trash talk.
True.
There's a lot of jawing between the dugouts, needling. I wouldn't say that's the same, but I think basketball trash talk is similar to football.
Yeah, because you can be physical
going
like
up against
hockey.
the same guy, the
you
guy
can be
that's
physical
guarding you
with them. Yeah,
right. If the guy jumps in, I'm going to shut you down. All of these things, then it's a challenge.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. We'll get back into the Titans in just a little bit. But coming up next, college football season is around the corner, and it's time to hear some excuse making for the SEC, because
fact checking.
These two over
Facts.
here.
Can we get that violin?
The world's smallest violin. These two were clucking like some old hens during one break yesterday. SEC, Big Ten, you know how it is. But there is something about the SEC that could have a big impact on the college football playoff. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Trevor Matich will join the program in about 15, 20 minutes. We always look forward to our conversations with our buddy Trevor. But SEC, well, not just the SEC, college football. I mean, the SEC thinks it's college football, but college football across the nation starts sooner than you think. And if you're an SEC football fan, like Willy Donick, like Connor Newt, you know that one of the big things about this season is the SEC going to a 9-game schedule. And yesterday, Willy Donick, King SEC over here, multi-sport SEC athlete, and Derek Mason, proud alum of Michigan State University, Big Ten through and through. These two were clucking like old hens, arguing about the SEC and the Big Ten and all this and that. You know, you've heard it once, you've heard it many times, but it's always entertaining. And Willy, I here's what I have written. Here's what I have written on the grid for the 4 o'clock segment. The SEC, where the motto is now, our worst teams are better than your worst teams. Alternate title, Willy makes more excuses for the SEC. So
I'm going to ignore that.
It's the truth, Willy.
We've got a clip to play that you wanted to bring to air.
Right.
You were listening to the Audible podcast on The Athletic featuring Ralph Russo, Bruce Feldman, and Stuart Mandel. And there was part of a conversation they were having during a big SEC preview that you wanted us to play so that you could use it as proof that you're not making excuses. So why don't you set it up and then we'll play.
Okay. So this year, for the first time, the SEC is playing 9 conference games plus, and this is what I was surprised at, they kept the rule that had already been there when they were playing 8 conference games, that you have to play one of your remaining non-conference games against a Power 4 team. So every SEC team, all 16, are playing 9 conference games and a 10th game against a Power 4 team. For Tennessee this year, they play Georgia Tech. For Vanderbilt, they play NC State. South Carolina always plays Clemson. Florida always plays Florida State. So my argument not only is that the depth of the SEC is the best in the country, and it's not even close, but also the strength of schedule is going to continue to make it hard for the SEC to get what they want, which is everything, right? They want to have the deepest league, but they also want to have the best league at the top. My argument is that the extra conference game plus the non-conference game that you have to play a Power 4 team is going to create cannibalism for the next several years. And I'm not sure how the SEC is going to overcome that. You hope that you have the teams at the top that are powerful enough to go through and win the playoffs, but the road to get there is more difficult than I would say than in any other league because of the depth of the league. And so it's going to affect different teams in the league in different ways. For example, in the Audible podcast, they were talking about Kentucky, who was 5-7 last year, but 4 of their they won some games. Well, let's let them lay out their wins last year, and that extra game, how it's going to make it more difficult for their new coaching staff to get them back up to a bowl game. This is their talk about Kentucky.
The bottom half of the SEC I think is going to take the brunt of it on the win total side, because that extra game, 5-7, but you had an extra non-conference game in there. Now you have a tougher opponent.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where you're going to feel it. And I feel like the Kentuckys of the world, the Mississippi States of the world, the Vandies, they're all going to feel it this year. And so I'm going to do a hold, Ralph.
Remember, before you talk, Ralph, remember.
So that was the Audible podcast on Kentucky.
Well, they were going on further to talk about Kentucky's wins last year compared to what they have this year, because Kentucky always plays Louisville, right? Louisville thumped them last year.
We don't have to talk about that.
But instead of having 3 other games, non-conference, that you can get 3 wins, and then you have to string together 3 more wins to get to a bowl game, it's tougher. Now, you notice how he lumps Vanderbilt in with the lower parts of the league.
We'll get to that.
We'll have to get to that at some point. But it doesn't just affect Kentucky. It affects everybody, regardless of what your objective is. And do we have the Tennessee one as well? We don't have the Tennessee one. Well, this is a podcast that I think is worth listening to, because for the Tennessee situation, and you heard a little bit of this last year, but it might even become a bigger thing this year. You could wake up and your team is 7-5. And they were talking about this specifically with Tennessee. But it would be in the context of, from the outside, it's a good team. But you're playing against a bear of a schedule. But you're now 7-5 instead of 8-4, or maybe even 9-3. There's going to be a lot of hotly contested swing games because of the balance of the league. And so whether you're a team that's trying to scrape together 6 wins, like a Kentucky would be this year, or a team that's trying to get into playoff contention, like Tennessee would be, that extra game is going to make that task harder. The Big Ten plays 9 conference games, but they have 18 teams. The league isn't as deep, and they don't have the rule that you have to play a Big 4 or Power 4 team out of conference. So you can play 3 cupcakes, which Indiana is doing, and a lot of the teams do. Not everybody, but some do. So I continue to come back to the SEC's biggest problem right now is not that they don't have great teams. It's that they have too many good teams, and they're going to eat each other up. And it's going to affect how many teams they get into the tournament, the playoff. And I don't think anybody can run the gauntlet and be undefeated in the regular season in that league. That's what I think.
So you're that kid that gets mad at the kid across the street because his family allow him to do things, but your family has put in these rules. So you mad at him and his family, but not mad or concerned about your own family, or just saying, hey, listen, these are the rules that are in place. If I don't want to abide by the rules, then I can get out the house. So that's basically, in a sense, what you're saying when you're talking about the conference games and the out-of-conference games. They had a choice not to do this. The SEC had a choice not to do this. Nobody twists their arm. Nobody. They had a choice. They made the choice to
play the ninth game.
Put these in place. Why? Because they thought that it would help them when it came to getting teams into the college football playoffs. And listen, it may help them with the strength of schedule. It may, because every year, this is what we argue about. Well, what are the commission, the panel, or what is it? The commissioner, not the commissioner, but the panel that votes, teams in.
Right. Which is still a big work process.
So one year they're everything is based on strength of schedule. The next year it's based on, wins. So they always flip-flop. So you got to find somewhere where it's in the middle. But the SEC want it all their way. That's what it is. They want everything their way. Instead of saying, hey, listen, if we want this thing, if we want to have a fair shot at getting our teams in, okay, well, we're not going to adopt some of these things that are going to make it tougher for us. How can I complain about it being tough to get in the college football playoffs when we've done that to ourselves?
I think that's a great point that you're making, is they chose to do it this way. I think the flaw is that first of all, it's tough for strength of schedule to be, because there's less data than there is for the NCAA basketball tournament. It's become a non-thing. It's an obvious thing that you have to schedule tough to make it to the NCAA tournament. It's hard to just schedule cream puffs and expect to get in there unless you're virtually undefeated or you get an automatic bid for winning your league. In college football, you're only playing 12 games. I don't think the committee has reflected on the strength of schedule and the balance of schedule. They go way too much on wins and losses, which is a big flaw. And Notre Dame is going to be a great example this year of a team that plays a much weaker schedule than a lot of the teams in the SEC. They're going to end up on that bubble and trying to get in. And Notre Dame has an automatic bid for being this year if they are in the top 12. And I'm telling you right now, if they're not in the top 12, they're going to have a really bad season. They should not lose more than one game on their schedule based on they're a good team, but their pathway is wide open. Picture like a flat highway in the middle of the plains, cruising down with no cars around. That's their path. Whereas you're trying to go through New York and Grand Central Station if you're in the SEC. The gauntlet is way, way tougher. And I think the Big Ten is in between Notre Dame and the SEC. I just believe right now we're going to be talking about a lot of big teams that are either 10-2 or 9-3 with a legit argument that their strength of schedule should put them in, but they're going to have to get past the notion of, they're 9-3. They lost 3 games. They have to look at it differently. It's got to be strength of schedule, but they have not reflected that since they went to this format.
So are you talking strength of schedule before the season, like where they're ranked before the season, or you're talking about strength of schedule during the season?
No, it's going to be at the time. I think
yeah, because a lot of these teams you had from last season, you had 2, 4, 7 teams that were ranked in the top 25. 7. So once they get to a certain part of the season, those wins that they had early, they don't mean anything anymore because these teams have fell out completely.
Right, but this is why
25.
you have to look at a different level. For example, I think this is where I don't want to make it about Vanderbilt, but let's take Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
They had a big win at South Carolina last year, early in the season when South Carolina was ranked 11th. That's a hostile environment. Well, by the end of the year, South Carolina was something like 4-8. They weren't very good. The wheels fell off. They had injuries. But when they beat them at the time, that should have been more meaningful. But at the end of the year, if the committee's only looking at a 4-8 team, it doesn't count as well. They didn't really get a bump. They beat LSU before LSU fired Brian Kelly, and LSU was a top 25 team. The wheels fell off after that. That didn't end up looking like a win with much luster. Same with Missouri. Missouri was a solid playoff contender. Their quarterback got injured in that game. Vanderbilt beat them, and Missouri wasn't the same team after that. So there's got to be a way of determining your pathway, strength of schedule. I would contend that those were really tough, hard-fought wins that didn't look as good. But relative to a lot of other teams, their pathway was a lot easier. And so that's going to happen every year. But the strength of schedule, I think it was going to be the most important thing that the committee has to look at, especially with the SEC adding that 9th game and keeping the rule that you got to play one other game non-conference against the Power 4. That's unprecedented how many tough games you're going to get.
But these are rules that they set up. Like the SEC set these rules up. So
you set it up with the idea that you hopefully would get rewarded for the strength of schedule.
That's like me putting money in stock. And if it doesn't produce anything, that's my fault because I chose to put my money in there knowing that there may have been a higher chance of me, coming out the other end, much better as far as, the stock for rising or falling, but yet still I chose to put my money in that stock. So if it now go belly up, I can't blame anybody else unless you were withholding something from me that I should have known, but I can't blame anyone. Now the SEC is blaming everybody else because of something that they've done. And they preemptively, I said that right?
Preemptively?
Yeah. They preemptively did it because they thought, this is the way it's going to be. So we're going to add that 9th game or the 8th game because they're going to look at it a certain way. That's going to be weighed heavy in my favor. But now I come to find out that may not be the case. And now they want to call foul on everybody else. Like, y'all not doing this. We are. Well, y'all made up these rules, man.
Before we get to Trevor, you know me. I do not have a horse in this race. I am an ACC lifer. I ride or die with the ACC or whatever it's left of the ACC. So this is an unbiased take on this conversation. I recall a few weeks ago, Nick Saban went on Get Up on ESPN from SEC Media Days, and he said into a microphone on national television, whoever wins the national championship doesn't define who has the best conference. I think the best conference gets defined by how many good teams you have from top to bottom. If I could invent a time machine and go back in time to the era where Nick Saban was at the height of his powers, and I brought that Nick Saban to present day and plopped him next to current day Nick Saban, and I let old Nick Saban hear what new Nick Saban had to say about, oh, it's not about winning championships, it's about the depth. I think old Nick Saban would give current day Nick Saban the biggest wedgie known to man.
He'll slap him on the knee.
But what he's saying is true.
Is it though?
It's not.
It
What? Yeah,
Is
in
it?
your world, in the SEC world now, it's true.
Are your arms tired, Willie, from moving those goalposts?
Yeah, you keep moving it.
I'm not taking anything away from the Big Ten winning the titles, but the strength of the league, the depth is. I don't think you can argue. It is a fact that it's a deeper league where from top to bottom, team for team, it's the best. It's the deepest league for sure. Now at the top, there's no question that the Big Ten has had the edge the last couple of years, but I think you're kidding yourself if you don't think their road has been a little bit easier to get to the playoff. And then once you get to the playoffs, we're talking about it's a new format now. You got to win at least 3 games, if not 4.
615-737-1025. We'll get Trevor Matich's thoughts on this coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Twice Daily and their rewards program. This is something we're pounding into for the fall as you get into that fall routine, especially all of you guys that have kids in school, kids' activities, games. You get into that day in, day out ritual that you go to and make Twice Daily a part of it because you are going to go and get gas. You're going to go to a convenience store. Make it be Twice Daily because every time you go there, if you're a part of their Twice Daily rewards program, you're going to get their special discounts, the savings. You'll earn points every time that you visit Twice Daily. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. They've got you covered here on 1025 The Game. So, Twice Daily, they've got all of your needs there. And if you're part of the Twice Daily rewards program, you're going to benefit, you're going to earn points, and you're going to save money. It's Twice Daily, fresh all day.
DMase, Vingan and Donick 1025. The game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Willy is the theme songs that include the number 2 in the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct.
You did that one already.
Well, I said just a number in the title, but not specifically the number 2.
I did the word 2002.
And now you're doing
Now I'm
TWO.
doing TWO, the number for Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Willie.
A quick programming note before we get to our friend Trevor Matich. Unfortunately, Nick Suss of the Tennessean is unavailable to join us at 5. However, I'm interested in this. No disrespect to our friend Nick Suss. I love having Nick Suss on the program. Ted Nguyen of The Athletic was also at practice today in Santa Clara. He's going to join us at 5:20. And what I think will be interesting from Ted's perspective is he is an outsider to the Tennessee Titans. This was his first look at the Tennessee Titans this summer. So really interested to get a national outsider's perspective on Titans practice. So Ted Nguyen of The Athletic will join us in about 1 hour. But let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com, and welcome in our friend Trevor Matich. Hello, Trevor. How are you?
I'm good, Adam. And as long as we're using Willy's rules on songs with the number or the word 2 in it, how about Eddie Money, 2 tickets to paradise, 2 different spellings of the word pronounced 2, 2 different meanings. So go Eddie Money.
Very nice. That would have been perfect. I'm going to tell you, it did not make the field, but it would have been right along the lines. That's a good thinking.
All right, Trevor. I'm sure you heard Willy. I'm sure you heard Willy belly aching about the SEC's 9-game schedule. Does Willy have a point here, or is it indeed just belly aching?
No, Willy always has good points, and he's got a good point here because the SEC typically is deeper with stronger lines of scrimmage than the Big Ten is. Now, the Big Ten will dispute that. The Big Ten will tell you that they've won 11 games in the 12-team playoff over the last couple of years, which is more than double what the SEC has won. Big Ten will tell you that in their last head-to-head game or 10 head-to-head games against the SEC, the Big Ten has won 8 of those 10 games. So the Big Ten will say, yeah, the SEC claims to be deeper, but the numbers show that we are. But when you look at that, your teams winning 8 games or more, when you look at teams putting multiple players into the NFL draft, the SEC still, I think, has a case that it is the tougher league to get through, and it's more physically brutal to survive from an injury standpoint than the Big Ten. So I can see where the SEC doesn't like it. I think it's a good point that the SEC also requires a non-conference game against the Power 4 opponent. And I heard you guys talking about Indiana as an example of how the Big Ten doesn't require that. Indiana, their 3 non-conference games are North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky all at home, right? Although Texas and Ohio State play, Michigan and Oklahoma play, so those kind of balance that out a little bit. But I think it's a fair point that adding a 9th SEC game make it even a more brutal physical gauntlet and make it even more difficult for the SEC's top teams to enter the playoffs as healthy as they could be.
Trevor, I get that. I understand it wholeheartedly. But what do you say to those that come back and says, well, the SEC made these rules up on their own. Why are they now, calling foul because of rules that they put on themselves? The Big Ten didn't say, hey, y'all need to play, this many teams, or, out of conference, y'all need to play this group of teams. No, they didn't. The ACC didn't say it, nor did the Big 12. I know the Pac-12 didn't say it because there's probably only 2 teams now. But again,
I think they moved up to 8.
Yes, you're right. They moved up to 8.
Grabbed a few other teams. Yeah.
So they had no say in the game
it's
anyway.
Hard to keep up with these
But
things.
Trevor, what do you say to people that come back to the SEC and say, hey, listen, you're crying about something or you're making something a big deal, and you implemented these rules against yourself?
I think that's fair, Derek. And when you look at the SEC of really, before this 3-year run by the Big Ten, the previous 15 years or so, the SEC was winning the national championship with multiple different teams, and they were clearly the deepest league as well. So that depth didn't stop them from winning a national championship. Although, of course, it wasn't a 12-team playoff back then and all that, so it's more grueling now than it's ever been. Even so, in the rules that were set up at the time with the BCS and then the 14 playoff, the SEC wasn't stopped winning the national championship because they had such a deep league and such a physical gauntlet. And you look at the Big Ten now over the last 3 years has not just caught up, but at the top, they have absolutely surpassed the SEC. You know, I mean, the last 3 national championships were all won by the Big Ten, 3 different teams, and the SEC didn't have a single team play for the national championship in those 3 years in a national championship game that the Big Ten won it. And so the SEC, you know, they don't complain about not being in national championship games in recent years. They don't complain about that. I think they're too smart for that and they have too much pride. But they counter it by saying that it's harder for them to get there because of what they claim is their depth. And the thing is, their own boastful rationale for being the greatest league in college football for a decade and a half was that they kept winning national championships with multiple teams, and the depth was just a nice side piece. Well, now they don't have that point, and they're looking for some other reason to say that, yeah, we still are a really strong league.
Now, Trevor, with that, excuse me, with that being said, we're talking with Trevor Matich, ESPN, and NFL and college football analyst. Now, when you're talking about, because we didn't hear these arguments, years ago with the SEC in regards to, being top heavy or just being, a better, group as a whole. We never had this conversation, but now all of a sudden the SEC wants to have this conversation. We all know it's about winning championships, but now it's sort of bled into, no, it's not really just all about winning championships. It's about who has the deeper, conference around. And we know, listen, I know that the SEC has a very deep conference. I get it. I'm a Big Ten guy. But if that was never the argument, why is that now an argument for the SEC now?
Because that's the only argument that they have.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not being disparaging of the SEC. The SEC is still a great conference. And, they've got to figure out a way to bounce back. And the way to do that is just to get better and really have better quarterback play. I mean, when you look at the quarterbacks that won the national championship in for the Big Ten, just off the top of my head, for Michigan, the start of that run, J.J. McCarthy became a first-round draft choice of the Vikings. Then for Ohio State, wasn't that the guy that's with Houston right now, the Texans? I'm spacing his name. But he was a first-round draft choice. And then last year, first pick of the draft was Fernando Mendoza. The quarterback play in the Big Ten has been absolutely phenomenal, and it's been deep. And I think if you look at SP Plus, which is an ESPN metric that goes beyond just what the rankings say, how good teams are, at the end of last year, and this goes to your point, Derek, the Big Ten had 3 of the top 4 teams in terms of strength, overall strength, SP Plus. Indiana, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Oregon at number 4. And then you had SEC teams starting with Georgia at 6, and then you have 5 SEC teams between 6 and 14. And so basically, with the Big Ten having 3 teams better in 3 of the national champions in SP Plus than the SEC at the end of last year, 3 stronger teams than any team that we had. But we have more teams between 6 and 14 than you do. So it doesn't work very well. Now, I think part of the issue with the SEC is that they went to that 9th conference game thinking that the playoff would expand from 12 to 16. But then the Big Ten wanted to go all the way to 24, and the SEC didn't want to make that jump until more data came in on a 12 or a 16-team playoff. And so by adding that extra game, extra conference game, it guaranteed the SEC to have 8 more conference losses spread out over their 16 teams, because there's another conference matchup and half those teams are going to lose it. And if it stays at 12, it makes it harder for the SEC to get there because they say they're deeper and it's harder to go that way.
Trevor Matich is with us from ESPN. So, Trevor, this definitely applies to the current format where the committee is selecting the 12 teams, but it will be just as big of a discussion if it does expand. Do you think, like, when the committee gets together and chooses the teams for the NCAA basketball tournament, you almost never hear about the one-loss record. It's all about strength of schedule, the quality wins. They're looking deep into the quality of your schedule. It has nothing to do with a team that's 21-9. Two teams could be 21-9 and have completely different strength of schedules. The committee recognizes that. I feel like it hasn't sunk in to the football committee yet. There's still a lot of eye candy of a team that is 11-1 or 10-2, as opposed to a 9-3 team that had a way more difficult schedule. Do you agree with that?
I agree. And the thing is, the committee is a thankless job. I would hate to be on it.
Yes.
Because no matter what you do, you're going to have more people than not think that you're wrong and that you're awful and that you're biased. And I don't think any of those things about the committee. I think they're doing the best they can with the criteria that they're given to apply. Okay. But I will say this, though. It's brutal for the teams that don't make it because of the reason that you said. Texas, I think, is a great example. Last year, they went up and lost to Ohio State, and had they played University of Ohio Bobcats instead of the Buckeyes, they almost certainly would have been in the playoff, and almost certainly would have been a team that was good enough to go deep into the playoff last year. Now, in fairness, they did not make the playoff because of the Ohio State loss. They lost to Florida. That's why they didn't make the playoff. But still, even losing to Florida, if they had scheduled an easier Power 4 team than Ohio State, then Texas could, probably still would have made the playoff. And their argument is that the committee didn't look at that and say, yeah, I think that was a one-score game, I believe, and it was on the road. And the committee didn't give them any credit for how well that they played in that game. And I see that. I see that point. Look at Notre Dame last year. Opened the season with 2 consecutive losses to 2 playoff caliber teams, Miami and Texas A&M, by a combined 4 points, and then crushed everybody else on their schedule. Didn't make the playoff in favor of other teams that probably weren't as good and didn't have the quality losses that Notre Dame had. BYU just barely missed the playoff. BYU had a number of good quality wins against teams that had winning records. Their strength of schedule was very good. It was better than Alabama's. It was better than other playoff teams, but they lost 2 games, both Texas Tech, the team that finished number 4 in the nation. And because of that, they ended up not making the playoff. And so the committee didn't look at that and say, yeah, those 2 losses are to a top 5 team. One of them was when BYU's quarterback was injured in the first drive of the game. And so we're going to give BYU credit for the quality win. Instead, they just look at the losses and say, yeah, that's too many losses. And so these are reasons why I think that the Big Ten and the way that they are kind of framing how a 2014 playoff will be selected actually makes sense to me. Because what the Big Ten is suggesting is that you have, say, call it 6 guaranteed or say 5 guaranteed Big Ten teams. The top 5 teams in Big Ten conference play are all in the playoff guaranteed, right? And that would free them up to schedule really fun, really difficult non-conference games, because those games will not count against those Big Ten teams if they lose them because they're not conference. They're guaranteed to come in if they finish in the top 5 in Big Ten play. Now, this is kind of a hypothetical paraphrasing what they're saying, but I think it makes sense to do that because right now the incentive for everybody making the schedule as easy a non-conference schedule as you possibly can, because that's the best way to not have extra losses, which the committee seems to be giving too much weight to.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday. Trevor, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Josh.
615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction on this. A lot of it mixed in the text line.
Bring it.
We'll get to it coming up.
I got more evidence. I will present.
I got a tidbit of evidence too.
Okay.
Hey,
All
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
All right. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. They have got a lot of great people that they have helped with the zero-cost equity loan. You don't want to mess with your mortgage rate right now if you're at a 2, 3, or 4%. If you got that a while back when the rates were that low, boom, keep it there. Don't refi that. You don't have to. You can still get cash out of your home with the equity in it if you use Loan Pronto's zero-cost equity loan. With Loan Pronto, you can get all the cash you need without touching your first mortgage and without any fees. There's no hard credit pull up front, usually no appraisal, no long drawn-out process. It's very streamlined. Plus, no closing costs. You might even be able to skip your next 2 house payments. So if you're looking for money for a project, keep it going with Loan Pronto right now and call right now at 615-499-5780. Find out how much money you can get right now. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. For qualified homeowners, equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Continuing
Is that
our
Smokey Robinson?
Nope.
That's not Smokey. Gosh.
college football conversation.
I'm sorry, Adam.
That's
I'll see if I
okay.
can get that out. That's not. Who is that, Willie? That's it's.
Uh,
The year is. Is that the 80s, 70s? That's the 70s.
I got to go back to my log that I.
Yeah, that's the 70s, right?
Oh,
there.
early 70s.
Yeah.
so to
This
say.
is 68.
Is it 68? Ooh.
Yeah, that's the moments. Love on a two-way street.
Ah, okay, yeah.
A little falsetto.
I
High
like
voice.
that.
How could we get you at a bar to sing that? How much do I have to pay you to see that?
Nothing.
We're talking about twos. Today's 2 for Tuesday. So
Yeah.
all the songs in the music today have the word two,
TWO.
the number 2 in there.
I'll order your Chiba Hut if we can get you out there and do that.
Yes, yes.
Let's go to our phone line driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Scott has been waiting patiently. Thank you for waiting, Scott. Please go ahead.
Oh my gosh, that argument. That was so Derek, you're better than this, man. Come on. I mean, the argument, you're saying that the SEC's whole argument was they were winning championships. That's not true because the SEC deeper is argument goes all the way back to the 1980s when they weren't winning championships. It actually goes back to the 1960s when they were, but then, you know, the Big Ten integrated, the SEC did, and the SEC, you know, fell behind. But the SEC had a big drought from 1980 to 1992 with no national championships. But it was always assumed, just by looking at things like the NFL draft and the number of teams ranked, that they were the deepest conference. And that's why people thought the SEC was crazy for going to the championship game. You know, a lot of people in the SEC said, we'll never win another one. We're making it that much harder. But ironically, it became easier. Another thing to note, too, is this 12-team playoff format has not been – it's been a disaster. It truly shows how great Indiana was as a team. But let's not forget, the 4 highest seeds that had byes are 1-7 since that format came in. So the best teams have not been advancing because they had to sit for 4 weeks while their next opponent got a warm-up game the week before. So that's not the best way to determine a championship, and hopefully they get that remedied quickly. And please, God, let's please stay at 16 and not go beyond that, or we're going to have the same dumb problem.
Thank you, Scott.
So
Scott had more, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And listen, I listen.
We
to Scott,
appreciate you,
and I
Scott.
appreciate Scott, and I respect his position. I don't agree with it, and I think it's, you know, short-sighted in a sense. But I'm not going all the way back to the 60s or the 70s
Or the 80s.
or the 80s because I really wasn't like following college football like that in regards to who had the toughest conference or who didn't. I was up north, so all I really knew was Northern football, Big Ten football. You know, I saw UT play sometimes. That's why I fell in love, you know, with UT back then, because, you know, they were one of the Carl Pickens and those guys. So it was like, man, a team that's passing. Oh, I love this. So I knew of some of the teams, but it wasn't like I was following the SEC and saying, well, we got a better conference up here up north. But that conversation in my lifetime has never been a thing. Who has the deeper conference? The thing was who win championships. That's what the argument was always about. Who wins? When you got into it with somebody about college football, the first thing was, well, who winning championships? Okay, Alabama won them. Who winning championships? Alabama. Who's winning championships? Florida. Who's winning championships? LSU. It was all about, I never heard anybody say, well, you know what? Not only are we winning championships, but we got the deepest conference in the country, which you were right. You did, and you still have the deepest conference in the country. That is not the argument. So you're bringing in an argument that's not one. We're talking about who has been the dominant conference, who win championships. That's what I talk about.
Well,
now all of a sudden the SEC wants to say, well, we got the deepest conference,
Right.
so
Coach Saban.
we should be considered, you know, the best. No one said that you didn't have the deepest conference. And no one said, like, hey, listen, if you're talking about the last 15, 20 years, yeah, y'all have been the best. But in the last 5 years, y'all haven't. And y'all don't like it. So when you don't like something, you try to interject another narrative. And the narrative now is
of facts.
Exactly. But they're facts, yes. But you wasn't using these facts a long time ago. When you thought just winning the championship was going to win me the case. Judge, we win championship. All right, next case. But now the judge is like, oh, y'all went, okay, Big Ten. Now it's like, whoa, judge. I need to, we got some more evidence we need to add in. Well, where was that evidence like 5, 10 years ago?
It wasn't needed at the time.
Oh my goodness. It wasn't needed.
I can't really argue with what you're saying. You have a good point. Scott's point that
I
think is
get
good.
Scott's point.
But Scott's point is good. That era of the 80s where who was winning? It was Oklahoma. It was Penn State. It was Miami. There were teams back then, and it just is how it was. But in my lifetime, that era, how you determine a national champion is completely different than today. And back then, it was only the voters. There was no playoff. You could even have a shared national championship, and it was basically a race to see who could be undefeated. So there was no reward, basically, for strength of schedule, and that probably did hurt the SEC. Then you got to the 1 versus 2, and then eventually 4, and now, of course, you have the 12. So I think the deeper the playoff field, the more strength of schedule should come into play. That is my argument for today. Let's take 2 teams. Tennessee last year. Tennessee was in the top 25 all season long, from start to finish. They were a top 25 team. Nobody would dispute that they should have been in the playoffs, right? Or nobody feels like they were ousted from the playoffs unfairly, right? They should not have been in the playoffs. They were 8-4. But that was a good team. The only teams that they lost to were either teams that made the playoffs, Georgia, Alabama, and Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt, who was 10-2. So they were 8-4. They played a very good schedule, and they were a solid top 25 team. Vanderbilt beats them decisively in the last regular season game, and the chair of the committee, who was at Vanderbilt, says Vanderbilt has no quality wins, even though they beat Tennessee. That's a quality win at Tennessee, but Tennessee was viewed as, well, they're 8-4. That is the problem with the committee, and that's the issue for the SEC being such a deep league. Now, quickly, Adam, here is Notre Dame's schedule for the upcoming year. You tell me about tiptoeing through the tulips with the easiest schedule I've ever seen for a team that wants to be considered with the big boys, that doesn't play in a conference. Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, all at home. At Purdue, at North Carolina. Comment, Adam? Nope. Stanford at home. At BYU, which is probably by far their toughest road game. Navy at home. Miami at home. Miami is probably their toughest game, period. BC at home. SMU at home. At Syracuse. Now, you could have a bad year, and that team should still go minimum 10-2. And if they don't go 11-1, they probably aren't playing as well as they can play. But that is such an easy road compared to just pick a team out of the SEC and look at their schedule. It's not even close. But the committee has to put Notre Dame in the 12 if they are ranked in the top 12. And you know who controls whether they're in the top 12? The committee. There's no metrics or strength of schedule. They just decide. It's a messed up system, and there needs to be way bigger discussion about strength of schedule.
615.
I rest my case.
615-737.
That's more where that came from, Adam.
1025.
But not today.
I mean, we've got
I'm gonna come back. No, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back with you. I'm gonna come back on the other side.
Okay.
Yes, this is not done, Willie. It's not done.
Connor's back there rooting me on.
I have to call this one down the middle, but eventually I got to pick a side. So I want to hear more of this.
I respect banners, not participation trophies. That's all I'm saying.
He's just like, when does Duke's basketball season start? That's all.
It starts sooner than you think.
615 one of those.
615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Ted Nguyen, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, will join us in about 15 minutes. He was at the Titans 49ers joint practice earlier today in Santa Clara, California. Really interested to hear what Ted has to say about the practice as an outsider. This was his first look at the Tennessee Titans under Robert Saleh. So we'll get Ted Nguyen's reaction to the joint practice in roughly 15, 20 minutes. We've been crowing about SEC versus Big Ten, 9-game SEC schedule, all of that. A lot of you have reactions, 615-737-1025. And as I have said, I do not have a horse in this race. But this is what I will contribute to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a time when Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Florida combined to win the national championship 13 times in 17 seasons. Let me repeat that. 13 times in 17 seasons. And maybe I missed it, Willy Donick, but I don't recall Nick Saban or Kirby Smart or Ed Orgeron or who would have been the coach of Florida at the time, Urban Meyer, being like, we are the best conference because we win all the national championships. Plus, look at Arkansas over there. Look at that. Look how great they are. Like, I just feel like the SEC.
But it was true.
But the SEC.
They were still the deepest.
But the SEC is losing its grip
Mm-hmm.
on college football in the sense of the SEC is no longer the undisputed number one conference in college football. And you know what desperate people do? They grasp at straws in any attempt
It's not
to
grasping at
remain
straws.
on top.
It is grasping
It's
at
just
straws.
pointing out the reality of the situation. Would you agree that part of the reason that we're in a new era because those teams, rattle them off again, the ones that won the 13 times.
Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Florida.
Back then, those teams could stockpile rosters that could not be matched. And, you know, look, I'll be the first to admit they were probably in one form or another, let's just say in general, getting benefits to the players that other teams, other leagues were not doing as efficiently or as well. They were cheating more, right? They were. It's always mattered more. They've always been the cheatingest conference of all time.
I'm glad y'all can admit that.
Well, it's not even close.
Yeah.
They have. But back then, you could hoard the talent better than you can now, where it's so much more fluid. There's no barrier for a player to transfer, and it's creating even more competitive balance in a league that was already deep, full of teams that care more about football than they should, right?
Mm-hmm.
They care more about football than anything that exists in life. A lot of times it's maniacal.
You're right about that, but again,
So it's harder now to be at the top and control all the talent like those teams did. Now those teams try to hang on to the players that they can, but they're going to lose players, and it's going to balance the teams across the country, especially in the SEC where everybody's got the resources.
So because of all that, now it's everybody else's fault. I didn't hear.
It's just changed. It's a changed format.
Yeah, you're right. The format has changed, but yet and still they were winning championship even as the format was changing, and nobody ever brought up Ole Miss and Mississippi State as, oh, we're a great conference because Mississippi State is at the bottom and they're the best of the worst teams out there. Never heard that argument. It wasn't being said when Alabama was playing Duke, New Mexico State, Southern Mississippi, Western Carolina. Nobody was saying anything then. It was like Alabama's winning. This team's winning from the SEC. They're winning championship. That's all it was about. Now, all of a sudden, the goalpost has moved. SEC sees themselves some reason. And it's not true, Willie. They think they're losing their grip. Listen, SEC, newsflash. Y'all are not losing your grip on college football. Y'all are not. Just because y'all haven't won championships, you haven't lost the grip on college football. You're still, from top to bottom, the most dominant conference out there from top to bottom. But even in saying that, that was never your argument. You never, SEC has never once said anything about the lower half. Matter of fact, they talked about the lower half of the conference because they were bad. Now all of a sudden, look at our bad teams. They're good now.
Was bad.
Exactly.
No.
People talked about they wanted Vandy out of the SEC.
May I interject
yes,
and bring up I'm going to switch sports here for a moment. A couple of years ago in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, the SEC set the record, correct? For the most teams in one conference in the field in a single year. It was like what?
14.
13 or 14.
That was 14. Yeah.
That was the year Florida won the national championship, correct? I just want to make sure I have this correct. I believe that was the year Florida won the national championship.
2 years ago? Yeah.
Yes. Had Florida not won the national championship that year, who cares if the SEC gets 14 teams into the NCAA tournament? You had 14 tries and you didn't win.
Well,
fortunately, Florida did win.
Joe made that. I think Joe Rexroad, we had a big debate before that tournament started about what would be a successful tournament for a league that got that many teams in. And I think I was arguing in a tournament, the more games you play, especially with the parity that's happening now, it's different than it used to be. And that is when you guys say I'm moving the goalposts, I'm not moving the goalposts. How you determine a champion has changed.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
How?
Because
what determines the champion?
NIL,
you go out there and win.
No.
That's the...
Okay.
Adam,
Derek,
what determines a champion? You go out there 4 quarters and you play.
I know.
I'm messing with
that.
you, Willie.
But
you set yourself up for that.
But hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
NIL is new.
Yes.
Free-flowing transfers is new. And the format of winning the title is new in that there's a 12-team bracket now. It's a playoff. It's not you get into the semifinal or you get into the final 2, or there is no playoff at all, which is all used to with in the past. So this is a new way of crowning a champion. So it is a more rugged road from start to finish. So a tougher schedule top to bottom and an extended playoff affects how hard it is to win a championship, especially when you can't hoard the talent and the depth that you used to be able to at the top of the league. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's real. And it's making it harder for teams in the SEC to go all the way. They're going to keep eating each other up. The cannibalism within the league is going to be a big issue going forward here.
Let's get to some of your reactions. 615-737-1025. Adam in Portland says, the SEC is like the really pretty girl who went and got work done but didn't need to. So now you just look at it like, oh, man, not the same at all. Chad says, I feel like Willie and I are taking crazy pills here. The idea that the SEC was the deepest came up all the time. The Big Ten wasn't even close to the SEC. So maybe that's why people not from around here didn't hear that much. But that has always been mentioned in my circles. Craig says, hold on. Craig says, Willie, you can't have it both ways. Either it just means more, or you need to admit the SEC might not be as great as they think they are. One texter also says, what is the SEC whining about? That Mississippi State is better than Northwestern? Sure.
Basically.
Yep. Cool.
The
Big Ten does end up playing SEC in playoffs and is winning championships.
Exactly. When the SEC and the Big Ten go against each other, who's won? The Big Ten. Okay.
They have.
And that is what determines a champion. Whether I don't care how many, because the SEC, I would, and I don't know the numbers now, but over the last couple of years, they've gotten, since it's been 2 years now since it's been 12 or 3 years. How long has it been 12? Last year was the first year, 12, right?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So at least
will be the third year coming of the 12.
So at least the last 2 years, the SEC has had just as many teams in the playoffs as the Big Ten, right? I don't know, but I would assume that is the case. But they haven't won a championship. So whose fault is that? Now all of a sudden it's, the depth of the conference. Who cares about the depth of the conference? Y'all make fun of your own lower class teams in your conference. So why now all of a sudden y'all want to bring them to the forefront? Look at our bad teams. because we're good, they're good.
Jeff says
No.
Willie is sounding more like the teacher on Charlie Brown the more he talks about this.
Womp, womp,
Womp,
womp,
womp,
womp.
womp, 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 womp,
I
womp.
have to stand up for Willie now.
All right, go ahead, Connor.
Come
Stand
on
up for
in.
Willie.
Come on in.
Stand
Come
up for
on
Willie.
in.
Help a brother out.
The argument here is what's the deeper conference? Let me pull out a stat for you.
Mhm.
In last year's NFL draft, how many players were selected by the Big Ten? Or from the Big Ten?
I probably not as many as the SEC.
68. How many players were coming out of the SEC?
There's a lot of players coming out of the SEC.
87, which shattered a record, by the way. So if the argument here is what's the deeper conference, I think that contributes to part of the whole. The argument is who on a deeper basis has the deeper team. So, and who would you rather watch on a Saturday? Vanderbilt, no offense, Vanderbilt and Arkansas or Purdue and Northwestern? I think the answer is clear. So I think what I'm trying to say is, yes, the Big Ten has the championship pedigree. You cannot take that away from them, and that's what I think makes them the number one conference right now. But in terms of who is the deepest and who has the most competitive football on a weekly basis, I stand with Willie. It's the SEC.
Here's another thing about the SEC, because I peeped game a while ago. The SEC only brings that up when they're in a position like this or they're in a position they were in basketball. I never heard the SEC talk about the depth of their basketball than I have over the last couple of years.
A lot of them don't care about basketball.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I care about basketball. But that's what I'm saying. Now, all of a sudden, the SEC is like, oh, we're deep in basketball. Y'all don't give a damn about basketball.
I'm not like, you know what? It's been 6-7 years, I want to say, since the ACC won the national championship in basketball. I believe Virginia was the last ACC team to win the national championship. And I'm not here going, but look at Miami. Look at Syracuse. Look at Boston College. No, I'm not doing that.
Does ACC basketball have the same pedigree SEC football has?
That's
it. I think at one time
it did. Absolutely.
That's a
Until they
different
sold
conversation.
out. I think
Absolutely.
when they had the 8 teams or the 9 teams and they had not sold out to get the bigger league to bring all these other teams in, which diluted the greatness of that conference, then I think you had to, in its heyday,
of course,
salute the ACC and really the old Big East. Those were the two that had the most pedigree. At
You mean things changed when the Atlantic Coast Conference allowed California into the league and Stanford and SMU? It changed.
It changed. But see, this is the thing. The goalposts moved.
Oh my goodness!
You guys, that's to use your term. It does evolve. It's different. I don't think it's better, really. I think it's worse. I don't like how it is right now. I don't like these big, huge leagues. I liked it better when there was a lot
smaller
more
ones.
8 to 10 team leagues. That's a good league.
But again,
16 or 18 teams is
y'all
too big
were
of a league.
not. Y'all, this was not a debate on who has the deepest league. You know why it wasn't a debate? Because we never went past who won a championship. That's how I know that it was never a conversation, because there was never a time that we can say consistently from the Big Ten, we won a championship. But the SEC could say that. So I know good and well, I know that conversation never happened because y'all didn't have to go that far. So I know the conversation ain't happening.
All right. All right.
It's a new day.
All right.
It's a new day.
We're going to put a pin in that for now. 615-737-1025. Who won? Who cares? 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Ted Nguyen, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, will join the program. He attended today's Titans-Niners practice in California. He'll provide his analysis for us coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in Ted Nguyen, NFL senior writer for The Athletic, who was out at Titans joint practice today with the 49ers. Ted, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And I am very interested, Ted, in your perspective on what you saw today from the Tennessee Titans, because you are not around them on a daily basis. So what were your main Titans takeaways from your trip out to Santa Clara today for joint practice?
I would say that the secondary was pretty bad today. They gave up a lot of explosive pass plays to the Niners offense, in particular their starting offense. There was like several 40-plus yard completions, which you don't want to see from your secondary. But, maybe the pass rush will be a little better in a live setting where they could get to the quarterback. And the run game looked like they had a lot of trouble getting going against the Niners front. And this is a front without Nick Bosa playing in it yet. So I think Cam Ward also had some good moments today where he looked comfortable back there, but he did start off the practice with a pick six, and then they finished with a really ugly 2-minute drill. So I think you want to see your offense finish on a better note. But the whole 2-minute drill started with them trying to go hard count to try to get some free yardage, and they ended up false starting twice and putting themselves behind the sticks, and then it ended in a really bad Hail Mary attempt. So there's some growing pains with the offense, learning Brian Daboll's system. Overall, I think they did get some good work against a very good Niners team, but they definitely saw some areas where they needed to improve on.
Earlier in the show, Ted, we were talking about the Titans corners, specifically Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott. You mentioned the Titans secondary did not have its best day. I remember earlier this summer, Ted, you wrote a story on The Athletic. You included the Titans in your list of defenses that are poised to break out in 2026. Struggles aside from the secondary, did anything stand out to you about the unit's performance today, specifically up front? Did you see elements of what you're hoping to see out of the defense under Robert Saleh?
Yeah, I mean, there was times where, you can't really touch the quarterbacks in these settings. So it's hard to tell whether you're getting a sack or not. But it definitely looked like there were times where the pass rush did take over, and they were causing some disruptions. There were a couple times where they made Brock Purdy hold on to the ball and have to scramble. And when you're scrambling, you're not really trying to hit the quarterback then. So I think maybe in a live setting where you're getting a pass rush that could actually impact the game, the defense will look a little bit better. And it was my first time really seeing Jeffrey Simmons up close, and man, that guy is a monster.
We'll talk with Ted Nguyen. Now, Ted, how apropos that you talked about the defensive back and them getting beat today, because that was my question. That was going to be my question to you, but in a sort of a bigger sort of sense. They go out and they sign Alontae Taylor and Flott, and the receivers here are doing so well. Tate, we've raved over, and I'm sure he's been doing a wonderful job there too, and I will ask you about that. But we've put a lot of emphasis on how well the receivers have looked, and not enough emphasis on, is this potentially a problem that they are looking so good? I hope it's not, but am I asking the right question? And is this defensive core, these two cornerbacks they went out and got, are they more on the end of being better than what we've seen, or are we seeing exactly who they are?
I will say there were a few big completions in the middle of the defense where I think the linebackers should have been a little bit more helpful inside. It's not like they were just getting beat by a bunch of go balls and double moves and that type of thing. It was just like the Niners offense, play action, get a guy open over the middle, and they run after the catch. So I wouldn't say the corners were completely to blame. But I mean, I think Alontae Taylor has always been a guy that was kind of boom or bust. Like he'll take some chances here or there. And so I think it's still a little too early to tell whether this secondary is going to be a big weakness for this team. But I will say some of the completions were in the middle of the defense, and Brock Purdy's just really good at layering the ball over. So I wouldn't put a huge amount of blame on them for today.
So is that something you were more surprised about, that Purdy and that offense was able to go out there and do some things against that new revamped secondary and that defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard from some of the beat guys there that Brock Purdy was just really having a great camp as far as pushing the ball a little deeper and that sort of deal. But it was pretty alarming to see how often he was able to hit some big plays against the secondary. So that can be a concern. But again, I think it's more of a function of a team thing where those linebackers have to help out those safeties in the middle of that defense as well.
Now, how the receivers were practicing and playing here, did it travel there to San Fran?
Well, I didn't see. I really wanted to see Carnell Tate make a bunch of plays, but I think he was pretty quiet today for the most part. I was more focused on the Titans defense and Niners offense. I did see him make a catch in a 2-minute drill, but it seemed like Wandell was getting a majority of the receptions. But they did have some big plays in the passing game. But I think it just wasn't as consistent throughout the practice as you would like.
We're talking to Ted Nguyen from The Athletic. He was on hand today for the controlled scrimmage, the practice between the 49ers and the Titans. So let's get a little perspective, Ted, on the 49ers. How do you view them right now? I know there's been a big story about their availability. They had a lot of guys who couldn't practice, and that seems to be the overreaching question for them going forward. It's an aging roster. Can they still be a winner? So who did the Titans go up against today? How good do you think the 49ers are going to be?
I mean, I think the Niners are in it every single year as long as Kyle Shanahan is calling the plays. They found ways to make it work even throughout their injuries. I mean, last year it was one of the more injured teams that I've seen from a Shanahan-led Niners team, and they still finished as a top 10 offense. But injuries are a concern. Christian McCaffrey was out. Kyle Juszczyk was out. Their second string back was out. Their third string back was out. Mike Evans came back to practice today, but he was knocked out of practice after one play or after a few plays. So it's definitely a concern. I mean, we saw Deebo Samuel lining up as running back because they have so little guys to carry the rock there. But a good silver lining for them is Deebo looked really good. I mean, he looks like he's in the best shape that I've seen him with the Niners, and he made plays as a running back. He made plays downfield. But their rookie, Deshaun Stribling, their second-round pick, that's the guy that really stood out today. I've been hearing murmurs of him having really good days in practice. Today was the first day he came back from a little nick himself, but the ball kept on finding him. He looked so explosive after the catch. So I think that's the guy that really stands out. And I think no matter what, the Niners are going to find ways to get people open, but it obviously makes things a lot easier when you have your top guys out there, and right now they just don't.
So with that perspective, that you still view the 49ers as a first-rate team with some injuries mixed in there. What's your view after watching the Titans up close? Because we're all trying to get a grip. They should get better. That's the nature of the league. If you've been bad for a while, you get the high picks. You should start to improve your roster. How much better do you think they could be this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively they can be better, but I think there's going to be some growing pains. Based on what I saw today, I think there are going to be some growing pains. I really like the Brian Daboll hire. I think he's really good with first-year or he's really good with young quarterbacks. But I think there's going to be some growing pains. He's learning a new offense. Cam Ward's learning a new offense. I think there's going to be a lot more on him at the line of scrimmage than he had last year. It just had some operational issues at times. Carnell Tate, you're going to depend on him a lot. He's a rookie as well. The running game just did not look very good today. And, for a young quarterback, having a running game that you could lean on to take some of the pressure off you could be very useful. But I didn't see them get a lot of space on the ground today. So I think there will be some growing pains early, but I do believe that they are on the right track, and maybe later down the line, maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the season, we start to see them get humming a little bit.
This is one where I'm not sure you would be able to glean anything from today's practice, but just as a general rule, the Titans pre-Daboll here, they ran a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and shotgun last year in the higher percentile in the league. so far what we've seen is not a whole lot of changes with the way Daboll is running that out there. And you mentioned the running game. How much more difficult do you think it is to have a good running game to support a young quarterback when you're running that much shotgun 3 wide? It seems like there's a trend right now that teams are going bigger with 2 tight ends and such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brian Daboll's a shotgun guy. You know, he's done that back to the days where he was coaching Josh Allen. And the issue with the running game in the shotgun is if your quarterback isn't a running threat, then it just makes it a lot tougher, because what you're losing in a shotgun is you're losing the back being able to go downhill. But if you have the option game to go with it, then it makes that subtraction worth it. But Cam Ward is a mobile quarterback. Like he can move around a little bit, but that's not really his game. He's not like a, Josh Allen where he's going to pull the ball and break for 30 yards. So when you lose that, that element of going downhill, it just makes it much tougher. And that's why a lot of these running games are getting under center more, getting those heavy tight ends in. So we'll see what Brian Daboll can do with that. He has put together some good running games before, but it does make it a lot tougher when your quarterback isn't a huge running threat.
Ted Nguyen of The Athletic is with us. Ted, last week, your colleague at The Athletic, Mike Sando, released his annual quarterback tiers. I'm sure, just like all of us, you were reading so much about that. We discussed it. It was a hot topic around the NFL. Everybody looks forward to Sando's quarterback project, where we were talking about the year 2 leaps that Caleb Williams and Drake May made. And we were wondering what a realistic year 2 jump could look like for Cam Ward. We're trying not to think pie in the sky here. Based on what you saw from Cam Ward today, what you have seen from Cam Ward early in his NFL career, you add in Brian Daboll, as you have mentioned a couple of times. What do you think a realistic year 2 jump for Cam Ward looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see him be able to complete some more balls downfield. I know a lot of it wasn't his fault last year. Had a very bad receiving core last year, a lot of drop passes. So I want to see him master the nuances of this offense. I think it's going to be a bit different for him. So during that growing pain period and beginning of the season, I don't expect him to just throw for 300 yards, every game, but I want to see him just take care of the ball, master the operational stuff. And as we get into the midseason, that's when I really want to see him take off a little bit. And again, it's going to be tough if they don't get a running game going. So I hope that they're able to do that. But I will say a difference between Drake May and Caleb Williams is they got guys that are certified top 10 play callers. Like I just did an article where I interviewed defensive coordinators and defensive coaches and asked them to rank their top 10 play callers. And Ben Johnson was ranked number 3. Josh McDaniel was ranked 9th. And it's not, Brian Daboll to me is a very good offensive coordinator, but he's not in that kind of elite category as those guys. But I think he will be good for Cam Ward overall. But I don't know if there's enough there to quite think that he's going to make it a huge year 2 leap like those guys. But we do want to see progress, and I do think that there will be some progress from Cam Ward. I just don't know if it's going to be that huge giant leap.
Last one for you, Ted. I have a philosophical quarterback question for you. The big news in the NFL today, the Minnesota Vikings officially announced that Kyler Murray will be the starting quarterback ahead of J.J. McCarthy, and it's led to the age-old chicken or the egg conversation regarding quarterbacking. So I'm very curious for your opinion. Does the NFL have a quarterback evaluation problem or a quarterback development problem?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, quarterback evaluation is always going to be tough because you just don't know how these young guys are going to react when you get into the league and the speed of the game changes and all that. So there's always going to be an evaluation problem. And I think as far as developing these guys, it's just a really hard league to develop when you're behind by a certain amount. Like, Anthony Richardson is another example of a guy that was just too far behind. I still think he has like the physical talent to develop, but this is not a league where you're going to have 3 years. Some guys might need 3 years, but you're not going to have all that time and all those reps to develop because your coach is going to get fired if you're not playing well for 3 years. So there definitely is a developmental program issue. I think JJ McCarthy, is a guy that has some shortcomings as a quarterback that is really tough to overcome. I hope that he gets to develop behind Kyler Murray and eventually gets a chance to play. But we've seen way too many of these stories popping up, from Zach Wilson to JJ McCarthy, where these guys don't get a chance. You get 7 starts, you look really bad, the team's ready to move on from you. So I do think it's both as evaluation and a developmental program. And unfortunately, I don't see an avenue where things get easier in either of those prongs.
Ted Nguyen of The Athletic, senior writer, has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. Ted, we appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight on today's joint practice. We'll do it again soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show reacting to what Ted had to say. Again, he was out at Titans 49ers practice earlier today. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We have a loaded show tomorrow. That is a trite radio show term. A loaded show for you, but it counts. Nick Suss of the Tennessean, who unfortunately conflict came up. He couldn't join us today as scheduled. He will join us tomorrow at 3:20. Live from California. So Nick Suss, don't fear. If you missed Nick Suss today, he will join us during the show tomorrow in the 3 o'clock hour. Excited about this. 4 o'clock tomorrow. Scheduled as of now because, things change. Mike Sando of The Athletic will join us. His quarterback tiers came out last week. We talked about them. He was a popular man last week, and he is expected to join the program tomorrow at 4. And at 5, Field Yates of ESPN will join the program. So we've got a lot to cover tomorrow on the Tennessee Titans. We do appreciate, however, Ted Nguyen of The Athletic for joining us on such short notice to break down the Niners-Titans practice today in Santa Clara, California. One texter in reaction to Ted's interview says, "What a buzzkill, LOL."
I think he was the best guest to have on for a little bit of outside perspective,
Yes.
not watching every day, but
Agreed.
just taking a snapshot
Yes.
and having a different way of viewing the team. I think that was great
Yes.
perspective.
He is a national NFL reporter. He specializes in film study and analytical breakdowns, X's and O's, things like that. So I was really glad Ted could join us because, as you said, Willie, it's different when you're not around the team every day and you just get a snapshot of what a team could look like. And it sounded, according to Ted Nguyen, of course, that today wasn't the greatest day for the Tennessee Titans. And I try not to overreact to one practice, but he didn't sound too enthused by what he saw.
Okay.
Especially on defense.
You're right. And
the secondary specifically.
And this is a trap that we fell into in previous years where we're watching the Titans practice against themselves. So we're trying to get a gauge on how this team is going to be. And maybe we get a little bit excited about this area of the team or this position. And then either when they play someone else in a scrimmage or a preseason game, we tend to get a different look after that scrimmage or preseason game. I hope that what was said today by Ted, and I know we'll have Nick on tomorrow, but I'm hoping that what Ted said and what he saw isn't what is going to, ultimately play out during the year. That a team that is still in the midst of building and are going to struggle. And they're going to struggle on the defensive side of the ball. So, whereas it's a snapshot for him, I hope it's not, a sort of glimpse of what we may see, once the season starts.
I think it's a bit of a reality check. That's why I asked him about Ted's perspective on the 49ers, who have been a contender for the last several years, and it always comes down to how healthy is that group going to stay, and they're trying to squeeze one more year out of it. I think this could be the year where the bubble bursts on the 49ers. If guys like George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Bosa and some of the guys,
even Debo,
that have been battling injuries already at this stage of their career, it gets harder every year to stay healthy, and they play in a really difficult division. So I can see the wheels falling off. And they were missing a lot of guys at practice. But I thought it was good perspective that Ted said he still views this team as a high-level NFL team. Great coaching, great play calling. So it's not easy to fly out there and just school the 49ers. So we should maybe temper the expectations of what you thought was going to happen at that practice.
The other thing, too, he said, Willie, and maybe this is where you're going. The one area I've been skeptical about with Brian Daboll is I've wondered if he's been dining out on his Josh Allen experience. And I thought it was interesting to hear Ted Nguyen, and I'll have to read the article he wrote that he referenced, talking to defensive play callers about the best offensive play callers in the NFL. Drake May has Josh McDaniels. Caleb Williams has Ben Johnson. Brian Daboll apparently did not make his top 10, Ted Wynn's top 10. That was also interesting perspective because as we're talking about the kind of leap we want to see from Cam Ward, coaching does play a factor into that. Ward does not have the quarterback mastermind in his corner in Brian Daboll that Caleb Williams and Drake May have in McDaniels and Johnson, respectively.
That is, I think, a trend that I didn't used to hear a whole lot about 15, 20, 30 years ago, of just the tiers of play callers. Now it seems like there's more appreciation for guys who seem to just be able to do it every year, even with the personnel turnover. I was curious. Nguyen does think that Daboll is a good play caller. But, for example, DMase, I think he hit on a theme that we need to watch. Cam seems to be very comfortable in the 3 wide receiver set with shotgun. I think they want that to be their base. But how well can they run the ball out of that with so much of it being out of the shotgun and not with the 2 tight ends where you can, muscle teams a little bit more? And he brought up the nuance of Daboll's teams usually can balance it out with a quarterback who can be a threat to run. And we know that has not been Cam's strength to this point. So I'm wondering about how that plays out.
Yeah, me too, because you can either go one or two ways with this on how you look at it. It's either is Cam, because his offense is predicated on, the quarterback being a part of the run game. So is he going to be, do you want him to be sort of a, Josh, well, not even a Josh Allen, because I think that's the extreme.
Right.
A Jackson Dart or Daniels. Do you want him to be that? Or do you want him to just have the ability to run, which means the defense has to account for me? Not that I'm going to break some, 30 or 40-yard run, but especially in critical times when it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 2 or 3, am I a threat in that? Because if I become a threat in that, now my run game opens up. I don't need to be a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, guys like that picks up bunches of yards, or Jaden Daniels. No, if I'm affecting the defense and make them account for me, that's all I need to do, whether it's on 3rd down, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, or it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2. If you don't show the ability to run, period, they're not going to respect you running. Like, nobody ever respected Peyton Manning or Tom Brady for running. Nobody. And every once in a while, those guys would get them on a run play. Can that be Cam?
I think that's the best case.
Yeah, best
if he's
case
just good enough
to run,
to keep you honest
exactly.
as a runner. That's what I want to see. Is Cam going to be able to thrive?
But you don't need him to be Daniel Jones or Josh Allen.
No, I don't, and that's not in him.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything in Cam's repertoire that suggests that he can be a really good runner. He's going to have to be a smart, pick your spot type of runner. But this was the buzzkill for me, Adam. The worry. I don't think Tony Pollard, as much of a pro as he is, or Tajay Spears, neither one of them individually are going to strike fear in the defense, saying, "Wow, how are we going to stop the Titans' running game? These guys they're game changers." You just don't have that. So that's one aspect of it. And then, is Cam Ward that good of a passer in year 2 in this new system to put the pressure on the defense that way? With a rookie wide receiver in Carnell Tate, that was something that Nguyen brought up. Like, as promising as he looks, what's reasonable to expect in his rookie year? Is he going to light it up from day one? That would be great. But it's a little bit of I don't know. Like, you can talk yourself into it. Boy, Carnell looks great. Cam is making some great throws. But when you start thinking about all these things, it does bring you back to what's reasonable to expect in this first year.
Well, I mean, I think that the run game is not, listen, Pollard and Spears and whoever else they want to sort of rotate in that backfield. We know what those guys are. We know what Pollard is. Pollard is a solid professional 1,000-yard guy. Boom, you know what he's going to get. We pretty much know who Spears is, but it's the offensive line. If the offensive line blocks better, then Pollard becomes a better runner.
Titans offensive line, buzzkill.
He was a much better runner in Dallas. Why? Because he had a much better offensive line.
For sure.
Connor, what's coming up on the 6?
Lots of Titans talk, as usual. Going to break down what we know from practice today. And I want to talk about Cam Ward, obviously. I want to talk about the kind of day he had today. And is it good for him to see the adversity that comes with a good NFC team on the other side?
All right. We will be listening. The 6 coming up.
Don't be afraid to shill for the SEC a little bit too, Connor.
I will never be afraid of that.
No, don't
hype him up.
No.
DMase. It just means more.
More excuse making, if you ask me. That'll do it for us today. We've got a lot of stuff to get to tomorrow. Nick Suss of the Tennessean will join us live from Cali. Mike Sando of The Athletic expected to join us at 4 o'clock. Field Yates of ESPN at 5. So we've got you covered from end to end. All things football tomorrow, starting at 3. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will be back on these airwaves starting at 3 p.m. tomorrow, talking all Titans. And as I always say, we're going to be talking.
You're going to be listening.
And the 6 is next. Peace.